Hello, beautiful YouTube. It is Emily. I felt that was so in resonance and harmony. I hope that means that everybody is doing really well out there. Okay. Today, when I was tuning in to hear what message could be of greatest service to this collective, anybody who watches me here, I heard freedom codes. And I was quickly reminded that freedom comes from within. And then I heard coming home to freedom. And then I thought of America. Actually, I heard America. And I heard something that we say in America, which is the home of the free, the brave, and the true. And, you know, I'm not here to be a politician. I have no desire to be a politician. I do think that poetry and politics have a synergistic beingness, I suppose. But what I'm most certain about is that the Constitution of the United States of America and the Declaration of Independence has a much larger story behind it than most Americans ever get the opportunity or chance to discover or learn about. And it is because of the vested power that lies in a sovereign way that American citizens, regardless of anything political going on within the nation, do have personal sovereign freedoms and birthrights that are possible to, I guess, commune with. So I will show you this particular code here. Now I won't tell you which direction it was written, but it did have a specific direction it went. Okay. Now, the next thing that wanted to be talked about was the emptying of self for the greater good. Now, in Zen Buddhism and other types of Eastern philosophy, we often hear about the emptying of self. Another place we can learn about the emptying of self is in the poetic works of a poet by the name of Jack Spicer. Jack Spicer was a Berkeley Renaissance, San Francisco Renaissance poet. He was in a brotherhood, and he talked about how the poet's job is just to get the poet's self out of the way and allow something else to come through. So see, I wrote my dissertation on one of the men who was Jack's best friend, actually. And so I've thought a lot and spent a lot of time with the idea of the serial poem, and this idea that a poem has no beginning nor end, and that Jack taught a workshop in the Bay Area known as Poetry as Magic Workshop. And yeah, and I think a lot about Jack's final words as he lay dying of alcoholism and Robin was near him. And he said to Robin, "My vocabulary did this to me, but your love will let you go on." They always quote the first part, everybody leaves off the second part. In my personal opinion, the second part is most useful in a poetic sense. So this emptying of self that all great magi, alchemists, poets, artistes, those who are of the Renaissance feeling and energy and frequency and vibration of I think here I would actually like to say the Aquarian avant-garde. So the avant-garde is an interesting school of artistry and artist making. If you look at the origins of the avant-garde, they began in the French regions and territories. It doesn't feel appropriate to give a full explanation of the avant-garde here now. That would take, a semester worth of study to fully unpack. But the avant-garde, some things have remained true about the avant-garde through time. And now that we're here at this interesting moment in the tenocracy we call America, and I feel that the Aquarian avant-garde is really a democratic, it's like a season, and every season has a reason, and every reason has a rhyme. It's just like, that's what it is. Okay. Now, the next thing that's important here is the inclusion of the divine self in every single moment. This is, I think, what all artists seek. I think this is what Yeshua, the Nazarene, who I would say was a magi himself. I don't know of any figure that more prominently was able to show his ability for union with the divine. Now, the more you start to read and study about Yeshua the Nazarene, the more you will realize that the Roman Empire really took the message and made of it something that it never was intended to be, and isn't, and never was, and never will be. And so through that, and the various tricklings out of Christianity that occurred through that, Christianity has a very deep shadow of enslavement embedded within it. So Yeshua the Nazarene, I really feel his message is about the freedom that comes from within, the freedom of the brave and the freedom of the true. And it is true that he came from a woman who was called a Mary. And Mary was a very high initiate, a high priestess. And she was no just uninitiated woman, okay? All women, all men, when they allow themselves to take an initiatory path, and I, Emily, want to state here, just from my personal perspective, I think that what Yeshua came to teach was that the initiatory path comes from within, just as all of the freedom codes come from within. And each and every being is made in the image and the likeness of that which is divine and whole. And Christ could never have been without Divine Mother. And so when we include the Divine Self in every moment, what we're learning to include is women and the divinity of women and the sovereign power of women and women's pure embodied connection to the divine womb. And we see this in ordinary life as women are the conceivers, growers, birthers, and nursers of babies. But the womb, that is just one example. The womb is so much more than just a creative space for human life to emerge from. It is literally an access point to all things that are spiritually divine. Okay, now the next message is letting the past be the past, because truth lives in the present moment of beauty. And there's a very specific definition of beauty that came through here. It is the architecture that is truly divine, like a temple that has a truly divine architecture, or a body temple. And the body is both inside the temple, and the temple is within the body. So this is why the temple arts in particular, I think I'm experiencing it for myself in my own life, in my own communities, the next evolutionary step for humanity at large, to help heal humanity, to help save humanity if humanity needs saving, and to fulfill the divine plan. And this is why loving women, and specifically the word I channeled was, this is why loving women righteously matters. Okay, I want to draw a very big distinction between things that are righteous, truly righteous, right? Things that are truly righteous include both love and peace and joy and wisdom and truth. Things that are self-righteous are abhorrent. And self-righteousness is a sick disease of many people who are enslaved to toxic Christianity. Okay? This is the light code for that. All right. Now, the thing that will actually save humanity is, ironically, sex. Not ordinary sex. Sacred sexuality, although all sex is sacred. It's just that there are so many ways that it is not upheld as that, and therefore I would say it in this day and age, in 2026, that sex has become deeply unsacred, but yet all sex is sacred. So it's a conundrum that needs to be solved. And we need men and women to both be doing the work to make sex holy again. I'm doing this new series called The Art of Loving Women Well. And in my second episode in that series, I talked about how in the newest published science, okay, science that has been published very recently, like early 2000s, researchers finally started studying female bodies in medicine. And specifically, the female nervous system is what I'm talking about here and now. So men's nervous systems regulate and come into coherence through, okay, this is like the most important, right? There's obviously biochemistry is complex and nuanced, but the most important chemical hormone, neurotransmitter for a man to regulate his nervous system is dopamine, right? Well, think about what the world has created in terms of distraction for men on our planet. Dopamine gives men this satisfaction feeling of like achieving and setting goals and meeting those goals, and it gives them a sense of orderliness. Okay, women have tried to be men, right? Women have tried to regulate themselves, trying to be on a dopamine system, but women are not on a dopamine system. Their female bodies are entirely unique. I think this is the thing that, and I will say it's likely that this is part of the transhumanism agenda and a lot of the subliminal programming that has been and is being blasted to humanity through this little guy right here. Okay, so the thing about it is that women regulate through oxytocin. And oxytocin, women have no chance of building up big reserves and filling their cup without feeling safe. They don't. And women are deeply sensitive beings. I think I'm receiving the message that I should insert a little clip by Gigi Young that I know of. So I'll do that here.
Ceremonial magic, it is the female, it is the woman who is the bridge to the spiritual world, not the man, the woman. As much as people want to confuse gender and confuse all this stuff, when it comes down to the ceremonial use of anything, it's plain as day. It is the female in any kind of ritual that forms the medium, the bridge to the spirit world. Okay? So she is the force that allows spiritual forces to enter the world. This is very clear. It's women who birth children. That is the most mundane, material example of the woman as a medium for the spirit world. This is literally, you can birth a baby. It's a miracle. Your womb is a manifestation chamber. Okay? But in the magical sense, that same principle translates. So you can also bring forth spiritual entities that can use your body and that can use your forces to manifest. And so let's look at some images of different occultists actually portraying this, you could say, image of the woman as the earth, as the altar, as the force, the foundation force in which the ritual will take place. In ceremonial magic.
So for women to be able to do what they are here to do, which is feminine leadership, but it's not the type of leadership we've seen. We don't have an example. Like we have women's that have like bobbed haircuts and wear pantsuits. Like I'm not talking about that type of feminine leadership. I'm talking about sovereign, whole, unified, loving, and truly righteous feminine leadership. That type of leadership allows the freedom of choice to remain intact in all moments. And it always has, and it always will, because it is yoked, and yoked means to yoga. It is yogad with the divine presence and source of all life. Women require safety mentally and emotionally. For a woman to really relax her nervous system in a way that she can receive the love of the divine God source creator of all of life, for her to be able to do that and to steward and to lead on this planet requires such safety in her nervous system, because woman is a force of nature. It is woman's true birthright to embody divine mother nature, divine mother. And when women don't feel safe, it's a true tragedy. It's like and a lot of people don't know this, but the Grecian muse, Melpomene, right? She's thought to be the muse of tragedy. Originally, in her normal, original, divine essence, she is the muse of celebration, a cause to celebrate. And that's kind of how I feel about what has happened on this planet to women, female sexuality. Just last night I was at a concert with a girlfriend, and she told me she made an appointment with a cosmetic surgeon, and she showed me the implant she wanted. And of course, the freedom to choose remains intact, but I feel like, what is more sinister than putting hard objects in women's heart chakras, in cutting open women's hearts and placing in objects that distort their heart frequency? I mean, no disrespect to any woman who has done this. I know that there is so much societal conditioning placed on women, and so many men attracted to implants because of adult entertainment and the neurochemical thing of that. However, in a world where women are safe to be themselves, breast implants do not exist, because, and this is something that I have personally learned, I would never let, and this is just my personal choice, but I, Emily, would never let a woman with breast implants into my most inner circle to relate with them. Okay? I would never do that, because I have learned and know that the distortion in the heart chakra throws off women's intuitive faculties. And when women cannot listen clearly to their heart, the whole world is at a disservice. Now, if a woman feels so terrible about her breasts, and maybe she's had 11 babies, and maybe her breasts have turned into like tube socks, and they fall to her belly button, and literally her nipples face the ground, okay? Like, maybe she would be able to feel her heart more. And this is what I told my friend, is like, if this is the situation, if this is like literally the situation, then I would say, okay, maybe. But like, when you have perfectly beautiful breasts, why? Like, why would you do that? That is such a toxic patriarchal programming. She's like, seeing it all the time on Instagram. Okay? So like, there's nuance in this conversation, obviously, because intelligence is nuanced. However, when women reclaim the power of their heart chakras and their wombs, and they fully awaken their body temples free of distortion, well, that is when this world will really change. And as much as I'd like to teach men to try to come back into a righteous, energetic with sex, because honestly, I think men have been targeted. I think that those who know that human beings can be programmed have targeted men, and they have programmed them through lyrics, through media entertainment, through adult entertainment, through all the ways that men are being programmed on our planet. And it is not their fault. And I have deep compassion and deep empathy for men who are struggling with porn addiction, with addiction of any kind. And I want to help men heal, but I'm also really convinced that women need to be the ones to help men learn to reclaim and call back that holy power of the womb. It's like the little bird and the dog. So beautiful. Okay. And that doesn't happen by not doing the work to reclaim your womb power, which does include for every woman a prolonged period of celibacy to heal things that need to be healed in women so that women can be whole. And this is the final light code that I would like to offer today. If you stayed all the way to the end and you think other people could use this message, I always appreciate a thumbs up or a comment, as long as you keep it respectful. And yeah, I hope you have a blessed and beautiful day out there. Much love.